All right, so I gotta be careful what I say in the first minute, but I was thinking this morning how you know when you can recognize a threat, it's not as dangerous. But the things that are really dangerous, the threats that are actually an actual threat, are the ones that you don't see as a threat. You know what I mean? Um, so what I was thinking this morning was yeah, it's only been 30 seconds, so I can't say certain things yet. But you know, if you recognize something as a threat, then you look out for it. But if you don't recognize it as a threat, you invite it in. You know what I mean? Um, I guess since it's Friday the 13th, I can mention a little bit about ghosts and shit. Now, you remember how in the vampire movies, the vampire can't enter your house unless you invite it in? Uh, and in the Conjuring movie, I never seen the Annabelle movie, but in the Conjuring movie, the demon asks for their permission to possess the doll, and that's because it doesn't get, it's saying it's a 4-year-old girl or whatever, and that it's lonely and that it just wants to be around them and it wants their permission to possess the doll. And they're like, yeah, sure, it's the little girl ghost. We don't want it to be lonely. It's actually a demon. And it tricks them into giving their consent and, inviting it into their lives. So, and that's real shit. You have, it's called the law of free will. If you're interested in these things, go on my Patreon. I talk about things like that on my Patreon. And then there's going to be people in the comments, well, you're advertising your Patreon. Like, dude, shut the fuck off. Like, um, I'm trying to make a living too, bro. But, so, but it's called the law of free will. Nothing happens to you without your consent. So, if you feel like you're dealing with some sort of ghost or demon or something, make it known that you are not given your permission or your consent for this thing to be in your life. And at that point, it's violating universal laws, God's laws, and it's not going to do that. There's a price to pay for that. Um, and anyone who knows anything is going to do their best to avoid breaking universal laws like the law of free will. Um, the only we're raised in a time and in a place where we're taught to be ignorant. We're kept in the dark about a lot of these things. So that's why we live in a world where people don't know these things. But here's the other thing: that the ones who really hold the power, they know, and so they put the information out there because they are trying to be in line with God's laws, with universal laws. So they know. Trust me, the people who control the world, they're telling you, "Oh, God's not real," and this and that. They're fooling you, but they answer to God, even though a lot of them are evil. They still answer to God. God created Satan. You know what I mean? Satan is. They make it seem like, oh, there's this battle between God and Satan. No, God gave birth to everything. Nothing competes with God. Uh, you know, uh, anyone trying to go against God is like a raindrop trying to go against a hurricane. So, God created good and evil. It's not like God's like trying to eliminate evil. He's not powerful enough to do it. No, God created this whole thing for a lot of reasons. I'm not even going to get into it. That's not what this video is about. But so, I was thinking this morning how the real threat to me right now, it's not heroin. I used to be on heroin. That's not a threat to me because I know how dangerous it is. I know that I can't touch it. I just know that. My brain turned that option off a long time ago. You know what I mean? I know that if I go start messing around with that again, there's a pretty high chance that I'm just gonna screw my life up and ruin all the things that I got going. So I recognize heroin as a threat, and so I it's just it's closed off as an option to me. But I was thinking recently, like, man, I really do miss weed. And I was thinking, that's the real threat for me. That's why weed is the real threat for me because I do miss it and I don't see it as a threat. I'm like, man, I can smoke and chill and still do my work during the day, and that's true. But the problem is with weed is it makes me very content with very little, and I don't push very hard and I don't work very hard, and I do miss it. Don't get me wrong, I do miss it. So, but it's only because I don't see it as a threat. But then I was thinking this morning, it is actually a threat. It could very easily just slow me down to the point and knock me back a few steps. Like, you know what? Why don't you get your money up, get a new truck to live out of, and then if you really want to, you can start smoking weed again. My kind of long term plan at this point is to get a nice, reliable truck to live in, not something where I'm worried it's going to break down every other day like this Honda. Um, Normally Hondas are great. I got one that wasn't great. I mean, chances are buying a used car, you usually a Honda's a good choice. But the one that I bought, and I didn't have time to really look into it and all that. The one that I bought just wasn't taken care of properly, so I inherited a whole bunch of problems when I bought this car. But so my kind of my plan for kind of the foreseeable future right now is to get myself a nice truck, nice reliable truck to live in, travel around the country, get over to Austin, get on Kill Tony, and do my stand up on Kill Tony and then take it from there. I've been killing every mic I've been going to. And here's the other thing, I'm not ready for no big opportunities right now. I know that because even though I've been doing stand up on and off since about 2008, that's like 15 years. But you got to realize that I only did stand up comedy for about 2 of those years, really. So now I'm getting up on stage once a week at least, sometimes twice a week. And I'm starting to get comfortable on stage, which is something I've never experienced before. Even back when I was in New York doing stand up, I was always really nervous and scared on stage, and I would drink to get over that. But now I'm going up sober pretty much every time. I got hammered the other night and went up and didn't do good. Um, but so I'm actually taking stand up seriously now. I didn't real I thought I was taking it serious back then, but I wasn't. I was partying. I didn't. Stand up when I was doing stand up in New York, I was not taking it serious at all. I was getting hammered every time I did it. Now, I go out and I buy one or two beers just to support the venue for letting me do stand up there. Like a lot of the times they just give it to me for free. I got to say Florida I I like the comedy scene down here. Like in New York, you're only getting free drinks if it's like a booked show. In Florida, when I do these open mics, I'm like, yeah, I'll take a beer. They're like, are you gonna do stand up? I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, it's free. I'm like, well, all right, but I still only drink one or two. But the other night I was going up late and I just sat there and drank all night. And then when I went up, I'm like, this is why I didn't succeed the last time because I was just partying and acting like an idiot, and then playing around and going up on stage and fucking off, and that ain't the that you don't show up to work shit faced. You know what I mean? So I'm never doing that again. If I got to go up late, then I'm just gonna show up late instead of because if I got to sit there and nothing against other comedians, but I've been to so many mics and so you know it's hard for me to sit through random stand-up comedy. You know what I mean? It's like I almost have to drink to keep myself from leaving. But that's when you're going up to do a job and make the crowd laugh. You shouldn't go up there shit-faced. It's never a good look. But I'm getting way off topic. So you know, the real threats in life are the ones you don't recognize as a threat because those are the ones that creep in, and it's just a slow death. Um, and that's why, that's why weed is dangerous for me, because it's the real problem with weed for me is when I'm smoking weed, my whole life revolves around it. I look forward to that. Um, now I'm looking forward to doing stand up. Last night I had a great set. I'll put up I'll put up one of the jokes in the shorts maybe tomorrow. But this is my life is going back to revolving around stand up because I ain't got nothing else. I mean, I got YouTube and Patreon and stuff, but stand up, I feel, is why God put me here. And thank God for YouTube and Patreon because they're funding my ability to do stand up. Without those two things, I wouldn't be able to do it. Believe it or not, YouTube is a job. You'd be shocked at how much work you have to put into it in order to keep it monetized, basically. I mean, it'll stay monetized, but if you're not putting up videos, they're not going to put you in the algorithm. You're not going to make anything. So you got to keep them coming. Um, and Patreon, just thank God I got loyal people who are into what I'm doing on there. But here's the thing, and I stopped working regular jobs for a lot of reasons, but really the real underlying main reason was because I wanted to do stand-up comedy, and when I have a regular job, I can't do that. When I'm devoting my entire life to working a regular job, I can't do stand-up. This is why there's so many comedians nowadays. They just aren't that good because a lot of them, it's like a hobby to them, and that's not their fault really. It's the industry's fault for not fostering talent and giving people the ability to do it full time. Although I got to say, Kill Tony is a golden opportunity. It looks like they're helping a lot of people out, and apparently Joe Rogan's comedy club helps. It fosters a lot of talent too. So things are changing on the scene. Thank God for that. But so yeah, the real threats. And here's the thing: the people who control the world. The reason they're able to keep that control and to maintain their power is because you don't know they're there. They are a real threat, but nobody even sees them. That's why they can get away with doing what they're doing. If people realize that, you know, the people who control the world are purposely doing a whole lot of damage, it's not an accident, it's on purpose. They're doing it on purpose. There's a lot of reasons for it. It goes deep. Go on my Patreon if you want the details. But that's why, because they operate from the shadows. Now, the people they prop up in front of us as leaders, they're nothing. They're goofy, stupid little puppets who just take all the blame for everything because they're morons. They're being used. They're pawns. If everything went to shit, they would be the first ones to go. And the people who hold the power would not give a shit at all. They'd laugh. They wouldn't care. That's their pawns. That's their front line. They're like, go ahead, eat them, slaughter them. They don't care. They wouldn't care at all. I mean, they would care because that's their first line of defense would be wiped out. But it's but yeah. I mean, that's you gotta you gotta realize that now. Weed's a threat. That's why it's dangerous because nobody sees it as a threat. It seems harmless. Now, there are times when weed is a blessing. Like if you're trying to get off something heavier, that weed is a great way to do it. It worked for me. When instead of focusing on the heroin, I started focusing on weed, and weed is what's weird? It's not that easy to quit smoking weed. I mean, not the first time. That I've quit smoking weed so many times that at this point it's easy for me. But here's the other thing. I do miss weed in a way that I don't miss heroin because weed seems so harmless. And heroin, I'm like, I don't even allow myself to miss it because I know what's gonna happen if I start messing with that shit again. It's gonna cost me at least a few years to get over it again because that's how that shit is. Um, the weird thing when I was getting addicted to heroin, here's a funny thing. I realized it. I even saw it as a threat at that point, but it's such a powerful thing that I didn't care. I was like, this is going to take years off my life. I'm going to have to spend years getting off of this, but I didn't care. I enjoyed it so much that I just didn't care. And my life was so miserable at the time that when I would go to there's a movie theater up on Broadway, a really nice movie theater. That's I'd go in that bathroom to do my dope because it's upstairs, it's away from everything. I got all the time in the world. I can make all the noise I want. I'm back there, you know. And I would get up there and do my dope, and on my way out of there, it would start hitting me, and it was like a beam of heaven shining down on me, and I'd be coming out of that lobby feeling like $1 million, but it's manufactured. It's not real. So that's not real happiness. When you gotta buy the happiness and it wears off in a few hours, it's you can keep wasting your resources chasing that, but eventually you're gonna have to let it go because it's you can't sustain it. Nobody can. Everyone thinks they can, but nobody can. This is why people end up doing foul shit on the street, selling their body, doing crimes, hurting other people, because it's unsustainable. In that movie Train Spotting, he says it best. He's like, I forget the line. Maybe I'll try to put the clip in here, but he nails it with that part. When I'll just try to add the clip in here, and hopefully they won't like you know demonetize me or whatever. But it's the part where he's like, you know, waking up, robbing, stealing, fucking people over, and then the next day you got to do it all over again. It's like that's that's that life. You never get ahead. You barely keep up with it because it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. This habit, and then it's unsustainable. And if you're willing to face that harsh truth, you're gonna realize that I have to quit this shit and I have to get off it. That's just the way it is. That's reality. So, if you're on any of that shit, you just gotta realize that the sooner you get off it, the sooner you can get to where you actually want to be in life. Because I guarantee you, you don't want to be there. And if you do, it's only because you're not being realistic, and that's how it was for me. But I was being realistic. That's the thing. I knew it. I knew. I was like, I can't sustain this. I just didn't care. I was like, but you know what? I can do it today. And so, I don't care. I'm not even thinking about 2 months from now, 2 years from now. I really got to thinking about that, though, as the habit would grow and I would have to go harder and harder. And then I'm not even really getting high. I'm just getting normal. I'm like this, but there's no satisfaction in it anymore. I'm just getting normal. And I was like, you know, time to quit. And then I would quit and I'd be like, well, now I can, $10. And I went through that cycle. I couldn't tell you how many times until eventually I faced the reality that I can't do this for the rest of my life. Maybe I could, but I don't want to. I don't want to spend the rest of my life running in circles doing this bullshit. Um, but that's why I'm like, it's not even a threat to me anymore because I know it's a threat. So yeah, I'm not interested in it. I'm not dealing with it. But on the other hand, the weed, I'm tempted. But like I said, I was like, I'm not going back down that road because all that's going to do is bring everything to a grinding halt. I can't continue to evolve and move forward. So I can spend the next couple of months, couple of years chilling and smoking weed, or I can spend the next couple of months, couple of years moving up. So, that's why it's a threat. For me, everyone's different, you know what I mean? You got to know yourself. Some people, they this is a time in their life where they're good with smoking weed. But if you really, really want to get to where you actually want to be, you're probably going to have to let it go. Maybe not. I don't know. But for me personally, I feel deep in my heart that it's going to slow me down, and it's this is a time in my life for me to work and get shit done. I'm tired of wasting time. I'm tired of being broke, tired of living like an animal. I was filming my next Patreon video and I was getting so annoyed. I got water dripping down on my computer while I'm trying to film my Patreon video. I'm like, I'm sick of this shit, bro. I'm done. Like, it's time for me to. I've lived the rigorous, harsh life long enough. I mean, living in a car is not easy, but the way I'm planning on doing it's gonna be. You'll see when I get a truck and build it out. Um, I'll film all that when I get to it. But so yeah, the main point of this video is that you gotta recognize the threats and see them for what they are, and don't let them hold you back. Um, it's just a matter of being brutally honest. There's what you want to do, and there's what you need to do. you know, what you know. I want to get rich, but I also want to smoke weed. But what do I want more? I want to get rich, and it's not just about getting rich. It's about freedom. I want freedom. Um, and that's another reason why I decided to go do the homeless thing. I wanted to be free from fear, but now I'm not free of fear. I'm still afraid of things. I don't, I say I'm not afraid of homelessness, and I'm not afraid of it. But I can tell you one thing: I don't want to deal with it no more. I wouldn't be afraid out on the street. I'd be angry. And that was one of my main problems when I was homeless. I was an angry. I think back to all the nasty when I was angry and nasty towards people, and it's embarrassing. At the time, it feels good, but when I think back on it, I think back on it with shame, and I'm like, you know, it's just embarrassing. I just, if I could go back and change anything, that would be it. I'd be less angry, and nasty towards a lot of people, and it's not like I was just going around attacking people and being this super nasty evil person, but every once in a while I would just turn real nasty, and I regret it. So that's I'm not afraid of being homeless, but I don't want to be like that no more, where I'm just this angry, nasty person who is looking for an outlet for their rage. It came in handy more than once when people would try to you know do me dirty, try to steal from me or something, and they realize that they're dealing with someone who just got possessed by a demon and is about to rip my head off my shoulders. They'd be like, let me find a different target. But anyways, I guess that's the end of this video. You got to recognize the threats. Don't let them in. Don't invite them in. And you know that's that's the point of this video. I was gonna try to do something about Halloween or Friday the 13th, because it's the Friday the 13th and Halloween's right around the corner. That doesn't happen too often. But my last video was about ghosts and stuff, so I'm real into that stuff. Um, Check my other channel. I'm doing all horror movies on that channel until Halloween. The next movie I'm doing, which I'm gonna film pretty much probably like today, is about that movie The Witch, which is a really, if you've never seen it, it's a great movie. I can't believe it's not a more popular horror movie, because it's a really good one with some really deep lessons. And on my other channel, I'll tell you what I learned from that movie, The Witch, from 2015. It's a scary movie. It's a great movie. Anyways, um, I guess that's the end of this video. Next Patreon video is going up later today. Appreciate all the new people on Patreon. It works out for me because as people leave my Patreon, new ones show up. So it always stays around the same number. I wish it would increase, but it is what it is. At least it ain't going down. So I appreciate every single one of you. And I guess that's the end of this video. And I'll see you either on Patreon, my other channel, or I'll see you back here. I'm gonna put up a pretty funny joke in the shorts, which is funny to me, but it might be It's one of my more offensive jokes. I'll put it to you that way. Anyways, I'll see you on the next one. Everybody have a good one.